Never said he loved her. That starry, starry night. They both knew.
I just left the Bahia of San Antonio, where I did spend the night, and I'm now on my way up to Baleares, and it's about 12.5 miles, and we are sailing downwind with the main out and the Genoa out on the other side, and it's not the most comfortable way of sailing because it's fairly rolling, but it's a very fast way, so we're doing speeds in excess of 8 knots, and we've seen 9.5 and up to 10 for a second, so surfing down the waves here. There's not much waves, but there's a bit of swell, so we have a following swell as well, which means on the surf side of the swell we do speed up a little bit. And it's going fairly good. We just passed the motor yacht here, which was in the same direction, fighting against the sea, and we just whizzed past him. That makes sailing very, very fun. We should be in Baleares in about less than 2 hours with this speed, and from there I'm going back to the mainland Spain again tomorrow, probably midday. And if this wind continues, we'll have a very quick and nice passage back to Villanova, where I have the boat at the moment. So I left Ibiza 3 hours ago, and we started out with absolutely no wind, and now, well, 3 hours into the trip, there's a southeast wind, about 10 to 12 knots. So the speed isn't quiet, sails are up and the engine is on, and we're doing about 3.6, 3.7 knots. Make the trip a little bit longer, but much more quiet and tranquil. I was tempted to hoist spinnaker, but since I'm alone and going into the night, it's now 7 o'clock in the evening, I'm not that tempted anymore, because if I have to take it down again in the night by myself, that's not very nice. If it's been 7 o'clock in the morning and we were heading into the day, then I definitely would have done that. Because this wind, with the wind from our starboard hindquarter, that would be a perfect spinnaker sailing. We'll see in the morning. If it still keeps on this way, we'll hoist the spinnaker. I'm a little bit disappointed in windy, because in these 8 days of cruising, windy on none of the forecast modules have had a correct wind, not once, and sometimes 180 degrees wrong. I don't know if it's the Mediterranean that's difficult, or if it's windy that doesn't really get the wind right, which is a pity, because otherwise it's supposed to be a very good app to use. I've used it before, and I might say that sometimes the wind has been as forecasted, but definitely not this trip. Well, we're coasting along now with 3.5, 3.7 knots, and into the evening on a very, very quiet, very, very calm Mediterranean Sea again. I'll keep you informed. See you tomorrow. And just as I convinced myself to take out the spinnaker anyway, because the wind was just a steady 11 knots and didn't seem to increase any, I went down, took out the spinnaker, got it here, and then when I came on top again, it's increased. The wind is now 14, gusting 15. So since my personal solo limit for using the spinnaker is between 18 and 19 knots, I decided not to do it anyway. We'll, as I said, we'll wait till tomorrow morning, and we might hoist it then if the wind remains the same. But going into night, risking wind increasing to more than 18, 19, up to 20s, I do not want to go out on deck to rescue the spinnaker under those conditions at night. Well, just goes to prove, once you get the spinnaker up on deck, the wind increases. Okay, talk to you later. And the wind was blowing less after a while, and as all plans are subject to change, I carried up the spinnaker bag and attached it, and attached the halyard and the sheets and the tack line. It's permanently mounted in the bow. Then I went forward, secured the lines, and was able to pull up the stocking to free the gennaker. My sail there is a asymmetric spinnaker, and once the stocking is up, I could go back to the cockpit to sheet in the spinnaker to make it fly good. The tack is fastened to a line that is on the block and pulley system in the bow, so I can, if needed, adjust the length of it to alter the shape of the spinnaker. And since this was not a very windy day or evening, I reefed in and rolled in the mainsail because it took some of the wind out of the gennaker. And once that was done, the gennaker was flying quite nicely, even though there wasn't blowing more than 6 to 8 knots at this point. I don't know why I bother, but anyway, I'm impatient, so I hoisted the spinnaker, and of course, the way nature works, once it's hoisted, the wind is dying. We got now 5 knots of wind. So I'll leave it there. It's a beautiful sail. It looks good, if not very efficient at the moment. Our speed is just about 3 knots. And well, it is what it is. And I'll leave it like this for a while and see how the weather evolves. Okay, talk to you later. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock in the morning, and the weather is turned a little bit cloudy, but we also, with the front coming in, got some wind. So we're having about 18 knots of wind now, and we're doing 6 knots with the Genoa and the main. We should be in Villanova in about 3 hours, 45, 4 hours, depending. And looking forward to get into harbor, even though this is a very nice and brisk sail. And the night has been fairly quiet. At 11 o'clock I took down the spinnaker, which was a bit of a hassle since it's pitch dark, and that's what I said earlier as well. I don't really like to do that, but yesterday I fell for the temptation of doing it, and of course the wind died for us, so there was to nowhere well doing all that work for nothing. Well, anyway, done is done, and all done and dealt with now. So see you in harbor. Talk to you later. This is the wind we should have had all along. Now it's a north-northeast, 26 to 28 knots, and we're doing 7 knots. fantastic. He came just about some 18, 19 hours later than predicted. We should have had this all the way since Ibiza. There's been some crossing traffic, and in the night I crossed two sailboats coming from my starboard, crossed in front of one and behind the other one, and that is the tightest or closest encounter I had all night. A few freight ships and a ferry, but they were much further away. These sailboats were about 2.5 miles away. And coming up to the coast, we also crossed the shipping lane, so there's a few boats crossing and a lot more traffic. And a good cup of coffee is always nice at sea. This guy didn't turn at all, so I had some leeway to turn upwind to get behind him, and hopefully he's not trailing any fishing gear that's in the near the surface. But that's what we had to deal with when we're coming close to shore, is fishing vessels. And it seems like most of them use their AIS now, but you can never be sure, and they will never turn for you, whatever right you have to pass.
Met a friend of mine the other day.
Land in sight, and it's time to prepare us for docking.
Sat down in the Royal
I usually put out my fenders when I'm about a mile or so from the port. Inside the port there's still the same wind, but much less waves, of course, and I turn the boat around and go in reverse to make my final turn into my berth. The opening is a fairly tight squeeze. My boat is 4 meters and 30 wide over deck, and the berth itself is 4 meters 70.
Tell you the truth. Keep on looking to the journeys of our youth. Though the sun it wasn't brighter, grass it wasn't greener.
But I do have the marineros from the port coming to meet me and give me the landlines and also the lazy lines that's in the sea. And with their help, docking is fairly easy.
Love's been good to me. I keep on looking out at the sea. Between you and me, like another chance again.
And they also lift up and give me the lazy line, which is a very dirty and disgusting line until I get to the part that's been used frequently. But once I've tied up at the rear, I put the boat in forward gear so it pulls away from the dock, and also gives me the possibility to tighten up the lazy lines as good as possible to give my boat the distance from the dock that I do want.
'Cause you know it's a fact that a great second act's hard to come by. If you were the future back then, could you do it all
Dover de Pasarela, and we are home.